We're about 15-ish games into the NBA season, and within those 15 games, we're already seeing teams looking like they're cooked for the season. But it doesn't mean that some teams can't bounce back and we'll get back into the playoff picture. So in today's video, we're going to be asking the question, are these NBA teams cooked or can they bounce back? But before we even get into the actual video itself, I do want to do a few house cleaning things. I'm going to be dividing teams into 3 different categories throughout this entire list. This video is based off the records that teams have as of November 15th, which is being recorded the day before you guys are actually going to be seeing this video. The Boston Celtics are not going to be on this list only because of the fact that we already had a feeling of what they were going to look like. There's no Tatum, no Horford, no Drew, no Porzingis, so it's kind of obvious that they were going to be cooked in the first place. And don't forget to please comment down below what teams you think are cooked or you think there's a chance that they can actually bounce back. Please also don't forget to like and subscribe. It does help contribute to the channel's growth, and I would really much appreciate it. For the first tier that we've got here today, in the undercooked tier, we've got the Los Angeles Clippers with a 4-8 record. Bradley Beal just broke his hip. Kawhi Leonard just sprained his ankle, meaning that he's going to be out for a significant amount of time. We don't really have a timetable on that just yet. Chris Paul, as much as he is my favorite point guard in the entire world, has not been getting any playing time. He's been getting a lot of DNPs and basically not playing even with the injuries to a lot of players. Zubac does not look as dominant as he did last year. The depth of this team is really showing its age, from Chris Paul to Brook Lopez, Nick Batum, you name it. The hilarious thing about this team, though, is that I feel like they have a Heat-like offense and defense. They were mainly known as a really good defensive team, but obviously this year, I feel like if you look at the way that they've been playing, it's definitely switched up. And I feel like this Clippers team is kind of doing the same thing that the past Miami Heat teams have been doing, which is they're really good at defense, but they literally cannot generate an offense for anything. Even with James Harden as the system, it doesn't change the fact that they traded Norman Powell to the Heat, ironically, and now the Heat's offense went up and the Clippers' offense went down. I know that they brought in guys like John Collins to the mix just to have a little more depth, but he doesn't replace the scoring value that a guy like Norman Powell provided them. But even then, I feel like you can kind of make the argument that the defense still really isn't that good, but I would say that they're lacking way more offense than they are defense. The only bright spot that I see with this team, and the reason why they're in the undercooked category for me, is that I still really trust Ty Lue as a coach, because throughout the years he's shown that he's an adjustments type coach, and I feel like I trust him enough to be able to swing the team back into an offensive flow. Because the Clippers, when they traded for Harden the first time, didn't really look great, but after a few games, they were able to get back into a rhythm, and I'm really hoping that he's going to be able to do that same thing this year too. Also, if Kawhi comes back healthy, there is a possibility of a comeback. I'm not expecting him to turn into Kevin Durant, but I think that he'll start being a little bit more aggressive, seeing the way that the Clippers have been playing. And this is why the Clippers are in the undercooked category, because I feel like even though they have a 4-8 record, the history has been shown that despite a really slow start, they're able to get themselves back into the playoff picture, and I'm really hoping that that happens this year, or at least I feel like that's going to be happening this year. The next team in the undercooked category is the Indiana Pacers. Now, I know what you guys are thinking. You guys see the 1-11 record and it's like, how are these guys in the undercooked category? To be honest with you, I feel like they're more closer to the second category compared to this first one, but I feel like with the absence of Tyrese Halliburton, who was pretty much kind of like the system in Indiana, it's something that's kind of expected, kind of like the same way that the Boston Celtics have kind of fallen off a little bit, or like this is going to basically be a gap year. The team has basically gotten blown out in every loss that they've had so far. They did have a close one against the Thunder, but if you look at a lot of their past games, especially recently, there's been a lot of blowouts on their end. Jarris Walker, despite the fact that I felt like he was going to be a very good player, has looked bad and like really superly inefficient. And I feel like this really sucks because the last 2 years he didn't really get the time to actually play because they had a guy like Pascal Siakam come in. He was a top 10 draft pick about 2 years ago, and I think the thing that really sucks is that he didn't really get the proper development because of a guy like Pascal Siakam and Obi Toppin kind of being on the team. So it kind of made him a third string type player. But obviously now with a lot of the depth missing and a lot of the injuries happening to this team, he's gotten the opportunity to play, but I feel like he hasn't really taken advantage of that opportunity. He's very inefficient when it comes to his scoring. Like I feel like some games he'll have a really good one, and then a lot of games he'll just be like 0 for 25 or something like that. So like his inefficiencies and his inconsistencies are something that's really killing him this year, and I just kind of feel like he got put into the wrong situation. He was a top 10 pick, didn't really get to play his first year, got some playing time his second year, but I don't feel like it was enough to have him develop. So I kind of feel like a guy who's kind of missing 2 years of his actual development. And also, just like I said, injuries are legitimately just destroying this team. They have like every guard in the world injured. Andrew Nembhard just came back, but he's not really shooting efficient efficiently, which I'm not going to be surprised because he did just come back from a very strange shoulder injury. But if he continues to kind of not really shoot that great, then the people who picked him for MIP are going to be really sad about this, because I was also in the camp that I thought he could win MIP. I'm just really hoping that he'll be able to bounce back, because there's been really high hopes for him, and I really thought with Tyrese Halliburton out for the year, he'd be able to take advantage of his situation. And yeah, like I said in the beginning, I feel like one of the biggest reasons why this team is in the tier that it's in is because this was a team that could have swung either way when it came to how good they were going to look this year. In the second tier, the medium rare tier, we've got the Orlando Magic with a 7-6 record. And this is a team that, oh boy, I know that we've had these talks about the Magic not really having an offense, but it really does feel like this year when the starters go to the bench, the offense just completely falls off. Desmond Bane is looking better, but he still hasn't looked great in the games that he's played. I also feel like he is the type of player that doesn't need to be running a lot of pick and rolls. Yeah, don't get me wrong, he was able to do that in Memphis, and while I do think that him being able to actually have the ball in his hands and run plays was valuable, he really doesn't need to have the ball in his hands as much as he does with guys like Franz, Paolo, and even Tyus Jones, who I think has sucked this year. Just by adding one shooter, I didn't think that the spacing was going to change overnight like that, but it still does look really cluttered, and it just kind of feels like barely anyone finishes at the rim. Desmond Bane is actually one of the guys who gets to the rim, but then instead of finishing, he'll actually pass it out. If you're not going to have great spacing, at least try to finish at the rim where you can. It also kind of does feel like outside of Paulo, Franz, and Desmond Bane, there's just such a big gap with this team. And I'm talking about from like an actual skill perspective, because there's guys like Tyus Jones, Wendell Carter, Goga Badatse. It's just full of guys that don't really feel like they're on the same level or can compete at the same level as these guys. I'm not saying they're bad by any means, but it just doesn't feel like they're able to contribute as much as the other three that I just named. Also, kind of sucks because Paulo just got hurt, and I feel like as long as they can find an additional bench piece that's not just Tristan Da Silva and Anthony Black, I think this team has a chance to make it into the playoffs. That's why they're at the bottom of the medium rare tier for me. I also feel like the absence of Mo Wagner is actually kind of one of the reasons why I feel like their bench depth hasn't looked so great, but I feel like they're just one more scoring piece away from being able to keep themselves competitive, or at least to look like their offense will be a little bit better than it has been the last few years. The next team in the medium rare tier is the Atlanta Hawks with an 8-5 record. The defense doesn't look good, but it looks better without Trae Young. Their offense is also 20th in the league, so they're basically bottom 10 in the league when it comes to offense. And it's actually kind of surprising because I feel like even without Trae Young, the offense doesn't really feel like it fell off that much. Porzingis just may be traded along with all of the Trae Young rumors that are going around, mainly because of the fact that I don't really feel like they need him on this team at the moment. And we'll get to why in a bit. I think one of the biggest things that's actually really surprising to me is the fact that after Trae Young went down, they actually have a 6-2 record, which is actually better than what they were looking like with him on the floor. So the biggest question is Trae Young the real problem? And I don't want to make this sound like it's the whole like, oh, Giannis and Chris Middleton, Giannis is Robin and Chris Middleton is Batman type of thing. Or like the way that the Grizzlies were when Ja was injured and Jaren Jackson and Desmond Bane were running the show. Like, do they really need Ja or whatever? We'll get to the Grizzlies later, though. That's why I think that at this point with the way, if the Hawks keep continuing to win, the Trae Young trade rumors may not just be trade rumors at this point. But like, I guess the main question is, ignoring all of the Trae Young rumors, if he does end up coming back, does this team keep winning, or are they going to revert to the same way that they were beforehand? Because Trae Young kind of does feel like the system similar to James Harden in a way. And whether or not the system is going to continue to work with this team when he comes back is really up to the way that he plays when he returns. Also, like I said before, Onyeka Okongwu has been a very, very big bright spot for this team. He really does look like the player that they wanted him to be. He's been shooting threes, he's been rebounding, he's been doing basically a little bit of everything that they've been asking for the last few years. And with the way that he's been playing, it kind of does feel like Porzingis doesn't really need to be on the team anymore, which is why he's probably going to get traded. My first team in our third and final tier is the Memphis Grizzlies in the overcooked tier with a 4-10 record. When I look at this team and I specifically look at Ja Morant, I feel like he seems to be mentally done. It also just doesn't help that he's also hurt at this point in time. He can barely shoot, he can barely finish. What is going on with this guy? He's only really had one major injury, which is his torn labrum, but I don't really feel like that's a reason why he's not able to really jump as high as he can anymore. Like, I understand he had this whole thing a few years ago, or at least even last year, where he was like, I don't really want to dunk as much as I should be. But also at the same time, I feel like when you're a guy that isn't focusing on improving his jump shooting, and the fact that your athletic athleticism is the one thing you're mainly known for, and you're still not utilizing it in ways that is still kind of safer in a way, it just really feels like as an individual, how are you going to be putting up points? Also, the trade rumors on Ja are very, very high right now. There are rumors about him going to the Heat. There's rumors about him going to the Grizzlies, you name it at this point. I also feel like because of all of the Ja Morant trade rumors that have been going around, Jaren Jackson Jr.'s name has also been thrown into trade rumors as well. And to be honest with you, I feel like ever since they traded Desmond Bane, it was kind of a sign that they were going to be headed in a different direction. I understand that, you know, they want to retool, but I feel like at this point, with the way that Ja has been kind of acting and the way that he's been playing the last few games, it might as well just be better to just blow up this entire team. The team also really doesn't have any center depth, and one of the biggest contributions to that is the fact that Zach Edey is injured. Thomas Isolow's coaching style does not work with this team, and for those of you who don't know what I'm talking about, the way that Thomas Isolow's rotations have kind of been is it feels like guys are kind of getting spurts of minutes instead of playing like a lot of minutes all at once. For an NBA player like Ja, who's a star, he's not really used to doing something like that. If you were to take someone like Giannis, for example, he's a little more used to playing a style like that, whereas like with Ja, Jaren, I don't think they're really used to that type of style, and I kind of feel like those are the rotations that you don't really want to put on this Memphis Grizzlies team, especially with the fact that I feel like a lot of their depth is kind of weak. Guys like Vince Williams and Gigi Jackson just also haven't really been what I expected them to be. I do feel like the only bright spot on this team though is Cedric Coward. I feel like at 11 he was one of the biggest steals of the draft. The next team I have in the overcooked tier are the Sacramento Kings with a 3-10 record. They're on a 5-game losing streak at the moment, and they're actually on pace for the second worst season in franchise history. I don't really feel like it is such a surprise because Sacramento has kind of been in the mud for the last like at least 2 decades or so. The Dennis Schroeder signing looks really bad. Like it at this point looks disastrous. It kind of feels like he's a player that if he's not playing in Euroball, he's kind of just like a regular NBA role player. And Russell Westbrook in his 18th year is actually starting over him now when you paid Dennis Schroeder to kind of be your starting point guard. Doug Christie also called out the team after losing to the Hawks, basically saying that they need to play with more effort and like, you know, like you should know what this team is, when it's like, I feel like we all know what this team is and we saw what this team was going to be, unfortunately. And there were reports that the team was actually going to end up doing a full-on rebuild, which I would love to see guys like Domantas Sabonis and Zach LaVine not be in Sacramento. I don't really think that the Sacramento Bulls was really a good idea to begin with. But like I can say Sabonis and LaVine have been looking good, but like it just kind of feels like the rest of the cast just doesn't really help the team at all. Oh, and it's also kind of funny because Boogie went on TV and actually called the team out. He basically said that he loves the fans, but the actual team and organization itself have not been treating the players well. And like if you think about it, they've shown a lot of things in the past that were very questionable, and it's just like, how are you guys gonna end up even moving the needle if you guys are gonna be doing things like this? Y'all running Tyreek Evans at small forward, trading Tyrese Halliburton, Davion Mitchell, and De'Aaron Fox, leaving you with basically no point guard. There's a lot that I could go on about, but I'm not gonna go do that right now. But yeah, I kind of think that this team is pretty much cooked. I had high hopes for them, or at least that they were going to be a bottom play-in team. But to start off this way, it's just so disappointing. Free LaVine, free Sabonis, free DeMar. The Dallas Mavericks are also another team that I think are overcooked with a 3-10 record as well. Thank God that Nico Harrison is finally fired. I know everyone has been calling for his name ever since 9 months ago when he traded Luka Doncic to the Lakers, which I'm not gonna lie to you, still feels like a complete and utter dream that even happened, that they even let that happen at all, that the league even approved of that trade. But thankfully he's kind of gone, and it kind of feels like his whole like defense wins championships thing has been thrown out the window. While the defense in Dallas does look really great, defense does not allow you to score more points than your opponent. You can have a really good defense, but if the opponent still outscores you, you're still going to lose the game. They also have no lead point guard on this team. They've got, D'Angelo Russell. They're running Cooper Flag at point guard, which I don't think he can really do. Don't get me wrong, he did have some moments at Duke where he was playing point guard, but to do it at an NBA level, literally being thrown into the fire like this, don't think that was a bright idea. The 80 trade rumors are also all over the league, from him going to Chicago, him going to Detroit, going to New York. Basically, at this point, you name it. Would love to see him back in the purple and gold, but I don't think that's really going to happen. Actually, I don't even think there's a way for him to even get there in the first place, unless they buy out his contract, which makes no sense, because he's got about like 3 more years, and those 3 years are really expensive, by the way. Klay Thompson Thompson, as sad as it sounds, looks really washed. He originally came there to play with Luka, and now he's playing with D'Angelo Russell. Like, that I feel like is such a downgrade. And with the 3-10 record that they have right now, is it even really worth it for Kyrie to even come back at this point? He is a guy who is a point guard, but I don't think having a point guard that late into the season whenever he's going to come back is going to help this team anymore. If they do end up rebuilding, like trading Klay Thompson, trading Anthony Davis, trading Najee Marshall, I basically want them to trade everyone that's not named Cooper or Derek Lively II. Max Christie could also stay. Oh, and also Brandon Williams, because I feel like he can actually develop into something while he's there. But yeah, this team is basically overcooked, pretty much set for a rebuild at this point. Thought that they were going to be like a bottom tier play-in team, or at least, you know, be right outside of the play-in, but nope, they're just not looking good at all. And the last team that we have in the overcooked tier is the New Orleans Pelicans. A 2-10 record. They just fired Willie Green, who I kind of feel like was dealt a really bad hand, but I also kind of feel like this was going to be the answer for them before they tried to trade Zion. Also, Zion got hurt again, but like, who's even surprised at this point? They also don't have their pick from this year because the Hawks own it, because they traded up for the pick to get Derek Queen. I still don't understand why they decided to trade that pick, because the way that Joe Dumars phrased it is like, I don't really care about wins or losses, but like, if you didn't care, why would you trade the pick? The pick is actually valuable. But speaking of that pick, they actually did use it to trade for Derek Queen, who's been looking solid since like the first few games, but apparently the way that he's been playing isn't enough for him to start, which is a very big question mark for me. Jeremiah Fears also looks good, but like, legitimately, other than that, I feel like this team has just been such a disappointment throughout the years. Y'all got rid of Brandon Ingram, basically showing that Zion was kind of the key focus right now, even though Zion was also in trade rumors. Also, the thing is, Zion just does not look as explosive as he did. Like, he's kind of the same way that I look at Ja Morant. I went to go see him live against the Clippers. Don't get me wrong, he scored a lot of points, but like, I kind of felt like he didn't have like any dunks that game. He was mostly driving to the rim with the same sort of technique, this like weird scoop shot. I don't know, I just feel like Zion is not the player that we expected him to be, which is just also a big disappointment as well. And yeah, I think with the firing of Willie Green, and now that I believe it's James Borrego who's going to be taking over the coaching duties, I really don't see this team like trying to bounce back. I'm pretty sure that their season is basically done at this point. They're legitimately just like the most cooked team in the league in my opinion. And that's all. Okay, thanks. I'll see you guys whenever, because I don't really have a consistent uploading schedule at this point anymore. Okay, cool, bye.